Hey guys, welcome to my Araxxor guide. Before we get started, keep in mind that you can skip to any section of the guide by looking in the description for a table of contents. Also remember that this is not a method to getting the fastest kills possible, and it is mainly aimed at those who are relatively new to the boss just looking for consistent kills. Just as a quick heads up as well, I'm not going to go in depth about which augmented weapons and armor to use here, as the possibilities are all so different. But I will put a link in the description to a very well done guide on perks and which ones to use by another YouTuber. That being said, here are my recommendations, excluding augmented items. The ideal setup for consistent Araxxor kills would be full Serenic with a tier 90 ranged weapon. However, downgrading to Pernix or even Death Lotus should not be an issue. Furthermore, Araxxor is definitely possible with a tier 80 ranged weapon, but will obviously be a noticeable step down from tier 90. The reason why I use a Reaper necklace is for the accuracy bonus. However, once I get into the higher Enrages, I switch to an Amulet of Souls for the extra damage reduction. One method that some people use is to use the Reaper necklace throughout the kill, and then switch to an Amulet of Souls for phase 4. The ring is really just personal preference. I use the Ring of Death because I hate losing my familiar if I die. As for the aura, Superior Sharpshooter is definitely preferred, but by no means necessary. Some alternatives I would recommend would be Supreme Invigorate, Vampirism, or Dark Magic. The Scrimshaw, I use a Scrimshaw of Cruelty for the extra damage, but a decent alternative is a Scrimshaw of Ranging. However, you do not absolutely need to use a Scrimshaw at all, and you could just take a Sign of Life instead. In my inventory, I take a decent amount of Bruise and Rocktails. You will obviously want overloads, but it can be done with extremes. I also take a Super Prayer Renewal and a Replenishment Potion. One potion that is absolutely necessary is an anti-poison. I take only one Restore Potion, as my Super Prayer Renewal and Replenishment Potions help massively in terms of restoring prayer points. I highly recommend an Enhanced Excalibur as well as a shield. If you're just learning the boss, I would highly recommend a Beast of Burden and just filling it completely with Rocktails. One optional item is an Araxxite Pheromone. The pheromone forces Araxxor to spawn in his mage form, which is pretty much the only effective way to kill him with ranged. Another way of forcing the preferred spawn is by making an instance. The benefit to the pheromone is that you don't have to pay for an instance. I personally just buy an instance because I like to see my kill time, which is not displayed if you use the pheromone method. Enrage is a unique anti-farm mechanic that Araxxor has. The basic way to describe it would be that the fight gets harder as it progresses, and each time you successfully kill the boss, the next time you attempt it, it becomes more difficult. Specifically, as the Enrage goes up, so does Araxxor's damage and accuracy. The Enrage is affected by many things, but the significant things to point out would be destroying eggs, killing his minions, and the acidity. You can see the specifics of how these affect Enrage on screen now. Also, it is worth mentioning that on phase 4, Araxxor will gain Enrage quite rapidly. Once she reaches 50k life points, the Enrage will increase by 1% every 2 attacks. In addition to this, once she reaches 25k life points, she will gain a flat 20% Enrage increase, and 5% for every attack from that point on. Lastly, if you successfully kill the boss, the next kill you do will start with 20% more Enrage. So the first kill you start with will be at 0% Enrage, and then the next would be at 20%, and then 40%, etc. This caps at 300% starting Enrage. Araxxor has quite a few special attacks. The main 3 special attacks are the Web Cocoon, Web Shield, and the Cleave. Araxxor will use only these 3 on phase 1, and will not use a special back-to-back until phase 3. The Cocoon is indicated by small spiders rushing to your character, followed by a cocoon around you. The base damage for this attack is 200 damage per tick, and increases depending on your Enrage. When this happens to you, you will want to spam click as fast as you can on either the ground or Araxxor to be released. Keep in mind that using Freedom or Anticipation before the Cocoon will significantly reduce the amount of clicks needed to get released and thus reduce damage taken. The Cleave attack does a lot of damage, increasing with Enrage. You will preferably want to use Anticipation or Freedom before, but if you don't get one of these abilities off in time, you will still be okay. You just need to react instantly, and immediately click back away from Araxxor to avoid the Cleave. Keep in mind that this attack will also damage your familiars, so keep an eye on their life points and make sure to restore their health at a summoning obelisk if necessary. The Web Shield special can be very deadly but also very useful. When Araxxor does this attack, a web shield surrounds him and he heals 1000 life points 5 times. Also, any damage you do to Araxxor will be reflected back at you, but it is not limited to the exact amount of damage you hit it for. For example, you could hit a 1000 and have him reflect 700 damage. Similarly, you could hit a 1000 and have him reflect much higher than 1000 based on Enrage. A great technique for the web shield is to use the snipe ability with your tier 90 weapon on, and then switch to a shield right as snipe releases and use the resonance ability. It's a nice way to get free heals, but it does take some practice to get used to. An alternative method would be to put on your shield and then use resonance followed by a snipe for a risk-free way of doing it. However, your heals will typically not be as high. The fourth main special attack Araxxor does starting on phase 2 and onward is the egg bombs. All you have to do is run on top of the 3 eggs that pop up on the floor, and you will take 300 damage and explode all of the eggs. If you don't make it and aren't close enough to any of the eggs, then you will take 3000 damage, and 3 spiders will spawn out of the eggs. Araxxor also has a few path-specific special attacks. The special attack unique to Path 2 is the Acidic Spider. You can identify this special by Araxxor using his melee attack animation, followed by the ranged attack ball landing on the floor. The spider will appear as a pool of acid on the floor, and then shortly later turn into an acidic spider which will one-hit you if it touches you. The spider will either move fast or slow, it's really just random. Your best bet is to just stay away from the acidic spot on the floor. This attack will be present whenever Path 2 is open. To break that down further, you will not experience the acidic spider until phase 3 unless you take Path 2. Furthermore, you should be aware that there's a difference between acidic spiders and the highly acidic spiders that spawn on phase 3. The highly acidic spiders are not dangerous whatsoever and can be lured into Araxxor to make phase 4 a bit less brutal. However, I don't bother luring the spiders and I believe it to be a waste of time. The special attack that is unique to Path 3 is the Darkness. The area will go black and you will need to stand within the spot of light to avoid taking damage. For me, I try my best to get to the light spot, but only if it makes sense to. For example, if I have a Death Swiftness active, then I don't bother going to the light, and just tank the damage. This special is also similar to the Acidic Spiders from Path 2 in the sense that you will not encounter it until phase 3 if you were to take a path other than Path 3. Now that the specials are out of the way, it's time to start the fight. Phase 1 is very simple. You'll want to enter the lair and run to burn the web for whatever path that you want to take. I would recommend burning the web and then using Anticipate and then attacking Araxxor. The method I use for phase 1 is to use basics up until 100% adrenaline and then using Death Swiftness and damaging him down as low as possible before moving on to the next phase. Remember that you will not be able to actually kill him, and once his life points reach 0, he will instantly regenerate back to 5000 life points. I usually get him to around 10k or below and then move on. The only specials to watch out for on this phase are the Cleave, Cocoon, and Web Shield. Remember to use Anticipation and Freedom on every 4th attack Araxxor does to avoid the special attacks. Some tips and tricks I would recommend for phase 1 is to always use a fragmentation shot off the start, and then run under Araxxor to move him like I did in this clip. Also, you will really want to have an adrenaline potion for this phase to be drank right after using Death Swiftness. This will allow you to use 2 basics and then use Snapshot. Using Snapshot first is really crucial to maximizing damage output since you will be able to use it a second time while still in your Death Swiftness once it has come off cooldown. Remember that Araxxor will not use the same special 2 times in a row in this phase. Be aware of when you use Rapid Fire as you don't want to use it only to have to cancel it or have it get interrupted by something like a Cleave. I would recommend using Rapid Fire just after Araxxor has used one of his special attacks. With practice, you will get the timing down of when to use each ability, and usually be able to get Araxxor down below 20k life points before the web is burned. Phase 2 is where the fight becomes a bit more difficult. For Path 1, the unique mechanic is that Araxxor will spawn spiders. He will spawn 20 spiders in total, and 5 at a time. Spawning spiders counts as one of Araxxor's special attacks. You will also experience the Egg Bomb special for the first time starting on phase 2. There are 5 types of spiders: Bladed, Spitting, Imbued, Pulsing, and Mirror Bag. Bladed, Spitting, and Imbued are fairly harmless and just attack you with their specified combat style. The spiders you will want to pay special attention to are the pulsing and the mirrorback spiders. Pulsing spiders heal Araxxor 5,000 life points every 5 seconds, so you will want to kill them as fast as possible to avoid losing progress. The mirrorback spiders will reflect the damage you deal to Araxxor back at you while they are alive, which makes them extremely deadly. You will definitely want to kill the mirrorback spider as fast as possible, and remember to be careful with AoE abilities such as Ricochet and Corruption Shot. Keep in mind that there is a pattern to the order in which the spiders spawn. The pulsing or mirrorback will be the third spider to spawn in the first wave of 5 summoned spiders. On the second wave of spiders spawned, the pulsing or mirrorback will be the second spider spawned of the 5. On the third wave of spiders, the pulsing or mirrorback will be the first spider to spawn of the group of 5. On the fourth wave, only combat spiders will spawn, so you will be safe from mirrorbacks and pulsing spiders. Knowing the order that the spiders spawn in is extremely helpful in avoiding accidental deaths to reflex from mirrorback spiders. Just use common sense and do not use very high damaging abilities when you know a mirrorback could spawn to avoid annoying deaths. Phase 2 on Path 1 is pretty simple. You will want to run up to the invisible line that ticks the boss to Phase 2, and then open up with a Death Swiftness. Keep in mind that the first special of this path will always be an Egg Bomb. DPS inside of your Death Swiftness for as long as you can, and then run to the Egg Bomb when it spawns. Then, just damage Araxxor down as much as you can while killing the spiders that Araxxor spawns. If you get Araxxor down to under 10k life points before he has spawned all of his spiders, feel free to just move on to Phase 3. This will mean spiders will most likely spawn during Phase 3, but it will make your kill much quicker and more efficient than just standing around waiting for the spiders to spawn. Remember that it doesn't really matter where you complete this phase, whether you take him down in the Phase 1 area like I do, or on the narrow path itself. I just personally find completing the phase in the starting area to be more convenient and easier to see the spiders when they spawn versus the narrow path. Remember that you can see how many spiders are left to spawn by hovering over the icon near the health bar at the top of the screen. Phase 2 on Path 2 is my personal favorite way to kill the boss. The idea of this path is to have Araxxor absorb acid in order to destroy the ramp, allowing you to move on to Phase 3. First off, you will want to run Araxxor into the big pool of green acid. It will follow you closer on this phase than other phases, almost running into melee distance to you, so be aware of that in case he uses his cleave attack. This path introduces the acidic spider, which I showed earlier in the video. As a quick reminder, remember that if he performs a melee attack animation while not in melee distance, then he is most likely spawning an acidic spider, which shows up as a pool of acid on the ground. It can be difficult to see sometimes if it lands in the large pool of acid, so be very careful and aware of what is happening to avoid the one-hit death. In addition to the acidic spider, Araxxor will use his web shield, egg bomb, and cleave special attacks on this path, so be very careful. Once Araxxor is in the pool of acid, you will notice a green acidity bar at the top of the screen starting to fill up. You will need a minimum of 50% acidity in a solo kill to damage the ramp enough to move on to Phase 3. However, he loses some acidity while moving up to the spot to damage the ramp, so make sure he has around 60% acidity just to be safe and save time in the event of a special attack causing you to have to go back for more acid. Remember to keep doing as much damage as possible while filling up the acidity bar as well. Once the acidity bar is filled up to around 60%, I recommend waiting for him to use a special attack before heading up the path. This will make it so you don't have to worry about something annoying happening, such as Araxxor using his web shield halfway up the ramp and losing enough acidity so that makes you have to go back for more. Take him to the top of the ramp, but stand one square away from the far edge. This may take some practice to get used to, but it's extremely helpful to do so. The reason for this is mainly the cleave attack. I used to always run to the very edge, and sometimes take pointless annoying deaths to cleaves because you have nowhere to run to be out of range of his attack. If you stop one square before the edge, he will still be dropping acid down onto the ramp, but also far enough away so that you can safely run out of the range of his cleave. You will also definitely want to watch out for the acidic spider spawns while on the ramp. In the event of the spider spawning on the ramp, there's a few different methods to dealing with it. The first option would be to try and run from the spider, and possibly having to bring Araxxor back down to the acid pool to get more acid if you end up moving him out of the range of damaging the ramp. The other option would be to either use the barricade or immortality abilities to survive the one-hit attack. Both methods have their ups and downs, and both slow your kill down usually. However, for someone who is new to the boss, I would recommend just using the barricade method so you don't have to deal with bringing Araxxor back down and repositioning him to be able to move on to phase 3. Also, don't forget to keep doing as much damage as you can while waiting for the ramp to break down. Path 3 is probably the easiest path to do whilst learning Araxxor. The reason why it's arguably the easiest is because you aren't really actually interacting with the boss during this path. Instead of being engaged in battle, on this path you are consistently damaged by darkness damage over time hits, and have to run to spots of light on the ground to avoid it. Before we get directly into the strategy for this phase, there's a few things worth mentioning. You have the choice of whether or not you want to stall your adrenaline this phase. I personally stall my adrenaline so that I can complete phase 3 quicker. However, if you are just learning, then it may be easier to just use the regenerate ability and let your adrenaline run out so you can focus completely on the task at hand. If you are going to stall adrenaline, I recommend letting it drop one time and then using a defensive ability such as preparation. Once you get out of combat initially, your target is cleared, which allows you to do things like use defensive thresholds or eat food such as a rocktail without losing any adrenaline. Again, this is all personal preference, so you can decide for yourself on how you want to handle adrenaline on this phase. Another quick thing to point out is that the Surge ability is a great ability for this path. Surge will allow you to get to the next spot of light once it changes much quicker than running, and therefore really helps out in reducing the damage you take. Putting the mobile perk on your enhanced Excalibur here will make it so you can surge to almost every light spot, so I would really recommend having that, but it is not by any means necessary. Araxxor will continue to alternate magic and ranged attacks throughout this phase. A good counter to these hits is to use Resonance when you can, and you can also use Devotion if you decide to stall your adrenaline to save a piece of food or two throughout the phase. The only special to worry about other than the darkness on this path is the Egg Bomb attack. The damage over time effect scales up the longer you stay out of the light until it reaches a damage cap that changes based on Enrage, but maximizes at 1000 damage. You will want to stay within the light spots and use personal judgment as to whether or not you tank the 3000 damage Egg Bomb hit or run out of the light to minimize the damage taken to just 300. Sometimes you will end up taking more damage from standing out of the light than you would have just tanking the 3k hit, especially into the higher Enrage kills. After about a minute of running to light spots and bombing eggs, you will get a message saying Araxxor prepares to come down from the ceiling and charge. Shortly after this message, you will be placed at the end of the path and be in a cutscene-like animation where Araxxor charges at you. He will then position his legs one of 4 ways, each signaling a different arrow key to be clicked. On screen now you will see the different animations in which key to press. Also, check below in the description for a cheat sheet of each animation with the correct arrow key press with it. Keep in mind that you can press the arrow key on your keyboard or click it directly on the screen. The choice is yours. You'll probably notice a new bar has appeared at the top of your screen that is blue in appearance and very similar to the acid bar on Path 2. This bar represents the damage done to the wall and will not appear until the first QuickTime event. Assuming you click the correct direction for the animation, the wall will be damaged by 50%. You then just repeat the process you did for the first 50%, running to the light spots and bombing the eggs until Araxxor charges for a second time. Once you complete the QuickTime event correctly again, the wall will be broken down and Phase 3 will begin. Keep in mind that pressing the wrong direction will result in you taking 2.5k damage, and the wall only takes 25% damage. It's not the end of the world, but it slows your kill down and increases the food used massively. With practice, it should be easy to memorize the animation and which direction to click in to dodge the attack. Phase 3 is sort of a combination of everything you faced in the fight so far. There are no real interesting unique mechanics to this phase, and the specials are based upon which paths are open. For example, if Path 1 and 3 are open, you have to deal with the darkness or spider spawn specials. Obviously, if you killed all of the spiders on Path 1 already, no more will spawn on Phase 3, but you will encounter the darkness spot of light special. However, if you took path 3 but path 1 was open, you will run into the spiders on phase 3. The same applies if path 2 is open while path 1 is as well. If you were to take the middle path, you will have spider spawns on phase 3. If path 2 is open, then you will encounter one-hit acidic spiders, and also the highly acidic spiders that are harmless that I mentioned earlier in the guide. Again, I really don't find the difference between luring the highly acidic spiders into Araxxor or not to be worth the time spent doing it, so I personally don't think you should bother luring them, but ultimately it's up for you to decide. Outside of the path-specific special attacks, you will also face the cleave and the web shield from phase 1. Interestingly as well, you will not face the cocoon special if you take path 3 while path 1 is open, but outside of that you will encounter the cocoon. Keep in mind that on this phase, Araxxor can use the same special attack back to back. Also starting on phase 3, Araxxor's attack speed will be increased, which can be problematic when rotating Anticipation and Freedom to avoid specials. Just try to use them correctly as often as you can, but don't stress too hard over missing one. As long as you are prepared and alert, you should be able to survive an unavoidable special. Another thing to mention before we get into the method to this phase is Araxxor's healing at the beginning of the phase. At the start of phase 3, Araxxor will heal 80% of the sum of the remaining life points Araxxor had at the end of phase 1 and 2. This is why it is important to get Araxxor down to low life points before moving on in the previous phases. The method to this phase is pretty much the same as phase 1. You'll want to start with the Death Swiftness and damage Araxxor down as much as you can, as fast as you can, while dealing with specials. It really is a simple phase in comparison to phase 2. Again, I would highly recommend using a proper Death Swiftness rotation. This probably differs slightly between most people, but you should be using Snapshot twice while Death Swiftness is active, in addition to Rapid Fire once. If you can sneak in a Shadow Tendril, that's even better, but if you're just learning, you might just want to stick to Rapid Fire and Snapshot. It may seem difficult to do while you're just learning bosses for the first time, but having a proper DPS rotation will make your PvMing experience much smoother and much more enjoyable. Be aware of the specials that Araxxor uses, and just reduce his life points to 0, and get ready for the toughest and final part of the fight, Phase 4. Phase 4 begins with a cutscene of hopping onto Araxxor's legs and then moving across the gap between platforms to the Phase 4 area. Araxxor will then drop down from the ceiling and kill Araxxor, and then the fight begins. For your first 3 kills of the boss, there is a much longer cutscene than you see in the clip here. Once you kill the boss 3 times, this cutscene gets reduced to the one you see in the video, which allows you to stall your adrenaline and prepare better for the phase. Before we get into how to complete this phase, there's some background information you should know beforehand. Araxxor will continue to use special attacks during this phase for the first 50,000 life points. She will always have access to the Cleave, Web Shield, and Cocoon special attacks for the first half of the fight. She will also summon any remaining spiders that you did not kill in the previous phases if Path 1 was open. This can be extremely detrimental to your kill when learning, so always make sure you kill them before Phase 4 until you feel confident in your abilities. She will not summon the one-hit spider if there was acid remaining to be dealt with, but rather absorb the leftover acidity. If Path 3 is open, then she will be able to use the Darkness special attack. The big and most difficult change to this phase is that Araxxor will use different attack styles depending on what protection prayer you have active. For example, if you are protecting from range, she will switch to a magic-based attack and vice versa. You will need to change prayers on this phase, which is why I highly recommend binding your protection prayers to a keybind on either your primary or a secondary action bar. The speed of the attacks differs very slightly, so you will want to stand where I am in the clip shown to avoid the different style attacks stacking up on you. It takes some practice, but you will get the hang of the prayer switching over time. Once you hit the 50k life points threshold, Araxxor will stop using her special attacks completely, but begin to attack quicker and hit harder. Once you bring her down to 25k life points, she will drain your adrenaline by 50% and gain 20% in rage, as well as sending out a black putrid acid wave that bounces around the room around 5 times before landing on top of you. If the wave touches you, it will deal rapid high damage. One thing that helped me learn the boss was using Revolution for Phase 4, as it allows you to solely focus on eating food and switching prayers, but again, this choice is for you to make. Now that we've covered all of the necessary information, it's time to show you the method of how to complete the phase safely and efficiently. You will want to start this phase by taking a sip of your anti-poison and re-overloading if necessary. Also, this may be a good time to drink your restore potion to replenish your prayer points if they are low. I also usually use my enhanced Excalibur at this point, although that choice is up to you. You will want to start off with high life points and begin to lower Araxxor's life points. Remember to keep rotating Anticipation and Freedom on every 4th attack, and to stay calm and keep your life points high. Using the Devotion and Debilitate abilities can really help make this phase a lot less brutal as well, so feel free to use them whenever you can. Damage Araxxor down to 50k life points, and then this is where you have a choice on how to deal with the last part of the fight. If you have the Onslaught ability unlocked and are comfortable with using it, then it is pretty much always a guaranteed way to kill Araxxor before the acid wave touches you, but you will have to be careful using it so you don't end up killing yourself. If you want to use Onslaught, make sure you are around full life points before activating it, and use it at around 25 to 30k life points remaining. This should get you the kill almost every time. Alternatively, if you don't have Onslaught, you will want to complete the rest of the fight with Death Swiftness. Use Death Swiftness when Araxxor has around 40k life points, and then drink your Adrenaline Potion. You will now want to get Araxxor down to as close as 25k life points as you can before using Rapid Fire. I like to use Corruption Shot around 30k life points and then follow it up with a Rapid Fire. Regardless of whether or not you have the Corruption Shot ability, you will want to use Rapid Fire as close to 25k life points as you can without ticking over it. Ideally, your Rapid Fire will get you within the last 10k life points or so, and you can finish it off before the wave ever touches you with a Snipe followed by a Dazing Shot or Needle Strike if using dual wield, but there's a good chance on your first learning kills that you will have to deal with the wave. The biggest thing to do here is not panic. Keep your life points high and let the wave hit you one time and then step away from it. At this point, Araxxor should be dead or very close to it, but if not, just continue the method of dealing damage and letting the core hit you once before moving away. I highly recommend against running around the room to avoid the wave. Letting it hit you once will reset it, so to speak, and make it bounce around about 5 more times before landing on you again. A lot of people struggle with this part of the fight, and it is typically where they die. I can't stress enough how important it is to just stay calm, as the acid wave really is not a massive threat. On screen now you will see an instance where I intentionally didn't kill Araxxor, and just let the wave bounce onto me several times to demonstrate that it isn't as scary as it seems. Once you've killed Araxxor, click her corpse to receive your loot. It's a tough fight, but it's extremely rewarding. I promise you that with practice, you will be able to kill this boss. Thanks for watching my guide, guys. I hope this helps get you your first Araxxor kill. I tried to cover everything about the fight in detail and not miss any crucial information, but if you do have any questions about anything at all that may have not been clear, please ask in the comments below. I would also love to hear some feedback about what your thoughts on the guide were, along with any suggestions for future videos. If you did enjoy the video, I would really appreciate a like, and as always, feel free to subscribe for more guides and videos in the future. Thanks again, guys, and good luck on your first Araxxor kill.